Venus and star blessings. How is everybody doing? It's been a while since I've been on. I've been a little bit unwell and I'm still unwell. Anyway, that's that. But look, I just want to spend maybe about 20 minutes because I don't really have um, much more energy to do more today because I'm still unwell. But what I really want to talk about is Jupiter, just very quickly. And I'm sort of jumping ahead because there is a full moon coming up in Sagittarius, which I'm hoping I'll be able to come back and speak to in the next couple of days. And I also need to absolutely come back and talk about the Venus evening star that's going to occur in June 4th, Sun Venus conjunction in Gemini. So you can see here that, or for this date here, 27th of May, Venus and the Sun are, pretty close. Anyway, I'll come back and talk about that. But what I just want to focus on today is actually Jupiter ingressing into Gemini, which picks up this trine to Pluto. The combination of Jupiter-Pluto aspects are really one of the most powerful aspects because they are simply put, the energy that actually enables us to reinvent ourself, aspects of our life. So I'm going to shut this door. Reinvent, regenerate, transform, and so forth. But with, tremendous confidence, courage, just, all the positive aspects of Jupiter that inspire us to go beyond the boundaries, of the apparent limitations, because we live in a Saturnian dimension that is, always presenting limitations to us. But before I unpack that, what I want to also just remind you of is this. So in 2020, quite a big year, as we all know, we had the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius, right? A very, very, I've locked Coco out. Hang on. Sorry, Coco. That was a very important cycle for all of us individually, but certainly collectively. We all know what happened in 2020. I don't need to go back to those details and unpack that. The point, however, is that moving forward from that date to now, when Jupiter ingresses into Gemini, which is around here, 27th of May, so about a week or so away, as Jupiter moves forward in Gemini, it's going to reach a point where it's going to form actually a square to Saturn. And this is really, really important. Now, let me just grab an assistant here. So there's Jupiter and there's Saturn, right? So Gemini is obviously square Pisces. So I think it'll be in about a month or so. We can check that in a moment. But basically, that square that's going to take place is very, very significant because it's basically part of the cycle of when Jupiter and Saturn form their conjunction at the end of 2020 in Aquarius. And this is called the first quarter square. So, in the same way that the sun and the moon form their conjunction, and we call that a new moon, and then the moon, traverses around the zodiac, and the moon forms her aspects to the sun, which we call the 8 lunation phases. Well, the same principle of those phases can be applied to any two planets. So the first quarter square is a crisis point. It's called Crisis in Action, according to Dane Rodier's work. So, crisis in action, and it is a square, and it is a first quarter square, is really going to bring to the surface and show us all the result, if you like, of what began in 2020. So, whatever was put into place from a collective perspective relative to the planets of Jupiter and Saturn, which are the two social planets, they are the planets that correspond to the social construct of this reality, how we experience this reality across the board with all systems and laws and rules and so on and so forth that are in play or have been put in place and so forth. So anything that was born at that time, which there was a lot of things born during that time, which obviously presented a lot of deeply struggling and challenging times to the world, right? Because since then, the unfoldment of that energy has been extremely difficult on a collective level, you know, relative to people losing their jobs, businesses closing down, systems falling apart, new systems trying to be implemented that are, you know, a lot more regimented, a lot more matters of control came into play. You know, the list goes on and on and on. Basically, we're talking about the two social planets. One speaks to constriction, Saturn, and the other one speaks to the desire to expand, right? So constriction and contraction, basically. Contraction is Jupiter, constriction is Saturn. So everything that was planted as a seed in 2020 has reached its course in its pathway of its own cycle in its first quarter square. And the first quarter square is very simply put, it's a reflection of the challenges that will now be revealed as to what was implemented at that time. In other words, what's working and what's not working is going to come to the surface, and it will, it depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about this on an individual level, obviously, personally, for us individually, it depends on what that speaks to in our own personal life, right? So where that conjunction occurred and in our chart, and you know what decisions we made at that point in time, etc., etc. But from a collective level, this is going to really highlight and put into some sort of trouble, if you like, some sort of corner, the things that do not work relative to what was implemented. So this is a very, very, very important, crucial part of the conjunction that occurred in 2020. And this is happening this year. So this is a really, really important time relative to these two planets. And the crisis in action is also characterized by the need to create some sort of change, the need to take action towards the things that were implemented, let's say, the things that were given birth to during the conjunction that just are not working, basically. You know, you've got to understand that a square it's a dynamic energy, so it causes tension and friction. It makes things uncomfortable, if you like, which forces one or people to take action in order to correct what's not actually working, for example. So I think, you know, from just loosely put and generally put, I think a lot of the BS that was that's been sort of implemented and forced, if you like, in various ways, is going to see its first encounter of conflict around that. The people, I suppose, through all that's been transpiring, you know, really for the last 4 years, and so many things have escalated in the last 6 or 7 months with the matters in the Middle East. We can see that there are, you know, numerous protests going on around the world on a number of different levels. But at the moment, we're seeing in the last few days, especially universities collectively, the students in universities protesting all around the globe. And that, by the way, has been the Sun, Jupiter, Uranus conjunction, which is basically, yeah. So if we go back to today's chart, you can see that the Sun and Jupiter are very close, because Jupiter is now being reborn as a morning star. This is the conjunction of Sun Jupiter. So Jupiter was with Uranus, as we know. There was that conjunction as well in the mix. So basically, these three bodies here really speak to those protesting matters that have been going on in the universities collectively. Uranus being the archetype or planetary energy that corresponds to rebellion, rebellious behavior, going against the status quo, and so forth. And Jupiter, of course, rules universities. So it's all, as above, so below. It's always there, literally. So going back to Jupiter, and I'm bypassing some other points, key points that I could mention about this triple conjunction here. But the first thing that I want to address, I guess, is the Cazimi conjunction, which is Jupiter and the Sun forming an exact conjunction. And that means Jupiter will be reborn as a morning star. And so, in other words, the last, I don't know how many months, we've seen Jupiter in the night sky, right? So Jupiter is a very bright planet, very bright star. And when it's shining bright in the night sky, it's a glorious phenomena to witness. And I don't know how many of you have been observing that, but I was watching Jupiter in the night sky for the last, almost 8-9 months, whatever it's been. So now Jupiter's going through this death rebirth passage, which is, it's kind of like a reset, if you like, which is what Venus is going through as well. She's preparing to form her conjunction to the Sun in Gemini next month, right? But I will come back to speak to that separately, because that's quite a lengthy video. I've got a lot to say about that. But getting back to Jupiter, I decided to pull some energy out and just speak briefly on Jupiter in Gemini, particularly because it's forming this trine, as I said, to Pluto. And if anything in the sky, if you like, energetically inspires and infuses energy within us to reinvent, recreate, transform, extract, deep sort of confidence and courage, to basically to go for whatever it is we're trying to recreate in our life. Because let's face it, the last few months, or the first few months of this year, we've had some pretty hairy eclipses and energies that have been very difficult across the board. I think, collectively, and for many people individually, there's been a lot of obstacles and a lot of challenges, a lot of limitations and so forth. So it's nice to see this aspect coming up, Pluto, trine Jupiter, the two planets that absolutely, in no uncertain terms, really do describe that ability to regenerate ourselves. And I think we can all do with a bit of regeneration, especially with, all the challenges that everyone's been going through collectively, because the fact is that life has been very difficult, for most people, for quite some time. So this is a sense of, it can be a sense of renewal, within oneself, and also a renewal in one's faith as well, because Jupiter, of course, is our faith, our ability to have faith in ourselves and in life and in God or Goddess, the cosmos, the divine plan, the script that our soul intended, to understand and remember that everything is working in divine proportion as it should be, right? So yeah, Jupiter, Trine, Pluto can be that sense of renewal in our own level of faith. And as I said, I think we can all use a dose of that. Now, this is only going to happen once, this trine. It'd be great if it was happening 3 times, but it's not, unfortunately. So we really need to maximize this window, maximize the opportunity of this window. Of course, Jupiter corresponds to opportunities. Jupiter will go retrograde later this year, but when it goes retrograde, as you can see, Pluto is already retrograde. So Pluto is going to go back into Capricorn to complete his final business there, which is the continuous exposure of the false dark elements of life that have kept certain things in play that haven't been genuine or honest or sincere. So all that is still, of course, crumbling, and we're going to see a greater surge of that for this year, particularly because Pluto is doing one more dip into Capricorn. So as we move forward, Pluto moves back into Capricorn and Jupiter continues in Gemini. And Jupiter will go retrograde in Gemini later this year, but it will only go back to about 10 or 11 degrees of Gemini. So it'll be too far away to form a trine again to Pluto. 10, 11 degrees is a little bit too wide for a trine aspect. So the opportunity is now, in other words. 27th, 28th, 29th May, and so forth. It's just a few days, a window of a few days. But never underestimate the power of trine aspects and the power of Pluto-Jupiter aspects. So I just want to read you just a couple of comments about Jupiter-Pluto combination. So a feeling of great resources and potential, inner stature and authority, a broad and deep experience of life, dramatic opportunities for regeneration and transformation, titanic evolutionary forces, extreme material or spiritual ambition, a tendency to feel high and mighty, which threatens those in authority. That's interesting. An obsession with glory and greatness, opportunities to abuse power. So, look, that can be integrated or manifested through different people, individually or collectively, in so many different ways, right? It depends on who we are talking about, and it depends on the consciousness of the soul in question or the group of souls in question. We can see that there is some potential there for the ability to manipulate. There always is, because we're talking about Pluto. Pluto is the master manipulator. However, if we just sort of focus more on the positive component of this and how we can integrate this into our own journey, it's just simply about tuning into the goodness of Jupiter, the optimism, the confidence, the generosity, the desire to expand and grow. And with Pluto, the desire to evolve and also regenerate ourselves from whether it's certain passages, whether it's a certain storyline, whether it's it can be directed in our entire life or particular aspects of our life. But the main thing to really take away from this is the understanding that there can be a really powerful and beautiful sense of renewed faith that can come through with this Jupiter-Pluto aspect. Let me see. Just a little bit more character and themes. A feeling of great resources and potential, capacity for enormous successes, brilliant gifts of organization, sustained career drives, empowerment through education, intense urges to improve. Um, Dramatic opportunities for regeneration and transformation, deep, thorough healing, complete overhauls, a desire and ability to transform mind, body, soul, and culture. The spiritual blood transfusion, a sense of powerful healing waves coursing through one's body and psyche, the transition from decay to fertilizer, beneficial destruction, heavy experiences with a positive outcome, the long trip into and through the underworld of the psyche. If I cannot bend the gods above, then I will move the infernal regions. The undreamed of benefits of psycho-spiritual death and rebirth, the death rebirth struggle with an emphasis on rebirth, triumph through facing death, the titanic drive toward rebirth, the ongoing struggle for purification, the successful purging of karma, activation of the inner kundalini, evolutionary forces in overdrive, intense idealism, the will to believe, the faith to move mountains, effective activism or philanthropy, the urge to share one's transformative experiences with the larger culture, personal healing that benefits everyone, the power of truth. There's more, but I'll leave it there. I just wanted to give you just a little sense of some additional character themes that you can reflect on relative to the combination of these two archetypes, Pluto and Jupiter. And it is a trine aspect, and trine aspects are generally a hallmark of the universe being in support of something that we are trying to integrate or accomplish. So it's a supportive stroke of luck from the universe. You know, when you hear people saying, I had a, I had really good luck today, for example, it's not that they had luck, it's that they were in a trine aspect. That's what trines do. They provide this sense of luck because they bring things into our timeline, into our journey at the exact moment that we need it. And it feels like it was a lucky moment or a lucky day or a lucky week or whatever you want to call it. But what it is, in fact, is that the timing of certain circumstances are in their perfect harmonious alignment, and they just show up for you at that precise time. That's why trine aspects can be so powerful for that reason. And it is Jupiter, which is a planet that corresponds to opportunities. So I think this is a really beautiful passage to really tap into and really be appreciative of, because even if it just instills a greater sense of faith, renews your faith, even just that can be life changing, as it were. Not that I want to, exaggerate, which is Jupiter in Gemini, that would be exaggerating. But, at the same time, I want to sort of emphasize just how powerful this portal of energy can be. If you have, if you go through, certain things in life where you've been beaten up by life a little bit here and there, and there can be this experience of feeling like, things are really unfair. It's really difficult. It's, I can't cope with this anymore. That kind of experience, which many people go through. The Jupiter Pluto aspect can really revive a sense of feeling more hopeful and have deeper faith, because it's renewed. That's what Pluto does. It renews what it touches. That's why it's the planet that we often describe as the planet being the one that transforms our life. When we renew something, what is that? that's a process and an experience of transforming something, isn't it? And we're using the word faith because we are corresponding that to the planet Jupiter. Jupiter is our ability to have faith, period. So a renewed sense of faith can be a tremendous gift from the gods, if you like, from the universe, at a point in our time where, that just experiencing that and rebirthing that within ourselves can be very, very helpful at a time where life has been pretty difficult, right? So that's the main thing that I really wanted to talk about today. Of course, I will come back and speak to Jupiter again in Gemini, because Jupiter will be in Gemini for the next 12 months. And that's quite a journey. I guess two things that I want to say before I go. Jupiter in Gemini is in its detriment position. Now, that's according to traditional astrology and according to what's called essential dignities and abilities. And, it does always depend on which lens you are viewing things from. But because I'm so eclectic and I view things from multiple lenses, from an evolutionary perspective, Hellenistic perspective, Babylonian perspective, psychological perspective, and that's something that I'm, really grateful for, that I have the ability to have my mind go into those different levels and understand the value in all of them. That's very much an Aquarian trait, to be eclectic and to have that level of detachment, right? And the ability to observe the different things and why and how they are different, and to be able to appreciate the value in all, right? That is very much an Aquarian trait. And as you guys know, I've got a lot of Aquarius in my chart. But getting back to the Jupiter in Gemini in detriment, it is something that I would consider as something that's important. I wouldn't dismiss that as Jupiter is traveling through Gemini, and particularly at the backdrop of this insane technological world, which is, advancing at the speed of light, particularly since Pluto ingressed into Aquarius, with the whole world of AI and all the different things that have already surfaced with that, and a lot more that we really have absolutely no clue about. And this is it's going to be a whole new reality, right? We can already see that, because we know that the reality that we thought was pre-2020 no longer exists. That world has died. And there's so many things about that world that I wish actually didn't have to die, to be quite honest. There's so many traditions and old school things that I think are still so credible and so valuable and so sacred in so many ways. And I hope that humanity across the board has the ability to continue to nurture those particular aspects of the old world, and to teach the new generations to not allow those older traditions to be forgotten like they have previously through other generations and other eras and so forth. Anyway, that's another subject. So I just lost my train of thought there, because my brain is still not functioning at 100%. Oh, that's right. Jupiter in detriment in Gemini, and the world of AI and the insatiable aspect of the ego that can never have enough, and the infinite curiosity. There's always a healthy level of curiosity in life, in people, which I think is a necessary desire. But the flip side to that coin is the overload of thought, information, data, that decenters the soul. We can see that, happening worldwide. There's so many stories on the youth of today that are, they are addicted to technology, right? And it's a drug. They've literally said, in certain studies and research and whatnot that they've been doing of late, they've literally called technology an addiction now, So think about those poor children that have grown up into this technology and do not know any different. Think about the time when you were playing in the park on swings with animals and running around with children. It's, those things, as simple as that sounds, that is one of the healthiest, experiences of play for children. These days, they don't get to do that. They just lock themselves in the room, and their face is glued to their tablet or phone. This is it's an epidemic. It is a problem, a much bigger problem than we realize. So the point to that is that Jupiter in Gemini can really expand all of that stuff, for not for better, but for worse. Remember, Jupiter has no boundaries. It doesn't know when enough is enough. Saturn is the guy that lets us know that, well, you've got to draw the line here. Lines are ruled by Saturn, boundaries. So Jupiter in Gemini can be an absolute overload of meaningless information, data, communication, words, whatever it may be. Absolutely meaningless. Verbal diarrhea. And again, as I say, in the backdrop of the level of technological advancement and the overloaded stimulation of technology, and how our mind we cannot put our phone down for a second. We're always checking our phone or checking our computer or checking this or checking that. It's created this problem, psychologically for so many people, right? I mean, my brother wrote this hilarious post on Facebook the other day, and it was just something along the lines of, he just posted something. Then he said, so before this, I guess all this was just in our mind. In other words, everyone who's on social media, for the most part, feels the need to communicate everything that they're thinking. It doesn't matter what it is. And so what were we doing before social media? All that stuff was being processed in our own mind, or we were having conversations with real people. So Jupiter in Gemini has, in being in detriment, it has that side to it where things can just be, it can just sort of draw in all this information and data just for the sake of having all this information. And then if you ask the person, well, what does it mean? They will not be able to tell you. It means nothing. That's why Jupiter in Gemini is in its detriment. It's not the best place for Jupiter, okay? But if we can, bring in some Saturn energy into ourself, into our life on a positive level, then we can implement the appropriate boundaries of when enough is enough, and when you may need to shut this down or shut that down, or not pay attention to this or not pay attention to that, because people will just end up losing their fucking mind. It's as simple as that. And finally, I just also want to talk a little bit about my classes. I rarely promote myself and talk about myself, but I think I need to start doing that because yeah, it's just important for me to speak for myself and what I have to offer. I mean, I've been creating YouTube videos now for the last 6 years, and I've loved that journey, and I've enjoyed sharing with you guys. But I have to also think about my future as well, and what I'm doing. I can't just spend my whole time just doing YouTube videos and that's it. I just simply wouldn't be able to survive. So I need to, when I do YouTube videos, I need to talk about my classes. At the moment, I have 2 series available, and there are 10 classes in the first one, 12 in the second one. There's a couple of workshops outside of those series as well. There are many of you that would be listening that have been following me for a while, and there are perhaps new people listening, whether you're new or whether you're not. And I mean, the fact is that my style, because it's so eclectic, and it encompasses a variety of teaching methods and principles. There is absolutely no way that you would not learn if you studied with me. I say that with pure, authentic confidence, not fake BS words to try and attract people, but authentic and genuine words, because I can put my back feet follow my front feet. That comes from a biblical term, which a very special person in my life many years ago taught me. And he said to me, if you ever want to know whether someone is, being truthful and authentic and genuine, just see if their back feet match their front feet. It's a biblical expression that connects to, whether somebody's being honest and authentic. And in other words, what somebody is speaking, do their actions follow with their words? Okay, just to put it simply like that. And for me, I feel that, yes, absolutely, my words match my actions, because what I say is what I do. And with regards to having put out 486 videos on YouTube on astrological content, that is not cookbook astrology, that is not surface level astrology, I have the right to say what I'm saying, right? Because my videos can be very complex, very eclectic, and do offer a lot more than just a few basic comments about a full moon or a new moon, and ramping that up in and producing it and presenting it to the public as though this full moon is going to change your life, BS kind of thing, right? Which I still see people doing, which still pisses me off when I see it, because I think, God, these people, they just keep tarnishing this sacred wisdom, this sacred language, because they're trying to jump on something where they are trying to promote their channel, their name, etc. And the sad thing is that there are still so many people very, very unaware or ignorant to the, let's say, the more authentic and truthful level of teaching of these studies. It doesn't matter whether you're an evolutionary astrologer, Hellenistic astrologer, Babylonian astrologer. Babylonian is a little bit different, just perhaps mainly because it is primarily predictive based. And if something is predictive based, then you will be making, a comment about something with a fair bit of conviction, right? So Babylonian astrology is a bit different for that reason. But I personally believe that only God knows everything, and the rest of us are trying our best to understand. And so when we are a teacher or a speaker or an astrologer or whatever, I think we have to remember that we're not, we are a part of God, we are an expression of God, but we're not the God. Right? So we have to allow the human factor, which can make a mistake. Being human means evolving and learning and growing. So that means that we will make mistakes, right? And that includes in our forecasting and predictive work as well. How many videos have you watched by so many people, various astrologers from all around the world? How many of those videos can you say that every single word of all those videos of all those people, that includes me, that you've listened to, was word for word gospel? There wouldn't be many, let's be honest, because nobody can really, really predict everything. It's just how it is. Why is that important? It's important because I think when you have some humbleness about your existence, at the same time having an understanding and an appreciation that you're a divine spark of the divine source of all creation, which means when we think about it on that level, that makes us all pretty remarkable, actually. We are a spark of divine consciousness, and in its purity, that is perfect. But when we incarnate into this physical realm, we are imperfect. That's why we are here. So being humble, being authentic, I think I think they are really important qualities to uphold throughout our life. Doesn't matter what we're doing. So getting back to my courses and my teaching and my classes, I encourage you to reach out and inquire about my classes. You will learn a lot, not one or two things. You will learn a lot. And it's just time for me to really expand this aspect of my life. It's really just time for me to do that. And I feel, having spoken of Jupiter Pluto aspect coming up, that's where this is coming from for me. And also the Venus, the Gemini Venus star point that's coming up in June. Well, it's a Gemini Venus star point. So, Gemini is about teaching, studying, learning, speaking, writing, reading, etc. So I'm already starting to tune into that as well. And that Gemini Venus star point happens in my 5th house of my birth chart. And so that's about me expressing myself with everything that I usually express myself with, I suppose, but expressing myself even more in this new cycle that's going to come up with Venus. Just having the light shine in that area of my life from the point of view of me being a teacher and my abilities in teaching, actually. So I'm starting to tune into that Gemini Venus star point, which of course connects to my own Venus, because it will, it squares my natal Venus. My natal Venus is in Gemini. It is in Pisces, rather. So, but I'll come back and talk about the Venus Gemini star point, which will be an evening star. And the evening star also very much corresponds to things like studying and, spiritual practices and spiritual life and being sort of divinely inspired by the stars and the sky. It's goddess Urania that corresponds to the Venus evening star. But I will come back and give you lots of goodies on that one very, very soon. I think I need to leave it here for today because I literally have no more energy to talk. I hope what I shared with you today is useful. And once again, reach out to me if you really want to learn from someone who's been practicing 26 years this lifetime and who is skilled in, numerous teachings and lenses of astrology. Yeah, well, I guess we are all drawn to different people at different times. And so, for those of you that will be drawn to me, I leave it in the hands of the universe, and I will see you when I see you. And relative to my next video, it will be on the full moon in Sagittarius. Sending you all so much love, and bye for now.